and draw it inward. Draw that awareness inward to a place that is not always changing. That is not shifting. Bring that awareness in to the very core of your being. You are the constant amidst the ever-changing sights and sounds and smells of the external world. The constant is you who is seeing, you who is hearing, you who is smelling or tasting. So bring that awareness onto the subject, you, instead of onto the objects that you're aware of. Just allow yourself to drop in. Drop into the subjectness of you. You are the one who is aware. The one who sees. The one who hears. Who is that one? Just drop in. Don't analyze. Don't tell stories. Just be present. Be present as a subject. Develop the ability as you sit to distinguish between that which is changing and therefore not self, whether it's a sound, a sensation, a smell, or a thought in your brain, or a memory or an emotion. A momentary shift in the electricity or the chemistry of your brain. Not self, because it's changing. Develop the ability as you sit here to distinguish between that which is changing and that which is not. You are that which is not changing. You are that which is aware of change. but not the change itself. Drop into that presence. That presence of consciousness. Which doesn't change. Slowly bring the palms of your hands together at chest level in Namaste and rub the palms of your hands against each other. Press the palms of your hands into your closed eyes. Slowly, from our family across the world, will then open it up to any questions that anyone here might have. Why is it important to connect with spirituality? This is asked by Tatiana in St. Petersburg. So Tatiana, and everyone, it depends what your goal is. There's no universal truth that says thou shalt connect with spirituality. There's no universal law. Nobody's going to fine you or jail you or tell you you're an awful person if you don't connect with spirituality. But it depends what your goal is. If your goal is simply, I want to make a bunch of money and I want to buy a bunch of things. Okay. You don't necessarily need spirituality for that. If your goal is just, I want to build a lot of muscle and have 6-pack abs and, look great in a bikini. Okay. Again, you may not need spirituality for that. But if your goal is anything deeper, if your goal is anything about truth, or love, or peace, or self-discovery, or deep connection with another being, whether in a romantic way or in any way, you need spirituality. If your goal is to not be thrown around by that which happens in life, the losses that happen, the pain that happens, the challenges that happen, the difficulties that happen, well, you're going to need spirituality. I mean, the only alternatives are, alcohol, drugs, a good therapist. we need something to help us through the struggles we go through. And either we turn to substances that don't actually help us and end up making us addicted and more miserable, or we turn to something that actually guides us through them. So for most of us, we want something more than just money and to look good in a bikini. And when you do, you need spirituality, because it gives us that. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean you need a boxed religion. It doesn't mean you need a dogma. It doesn't mean you necessarily need to believe in or worship God in a certain name or a certain form or with a certain set of rituals or rites. Religion is beautiful. It's very powerful, very meaningful for a lot of people. But it isn't a requirement to have a spiritual connection. You can be connected to spirit, to the divine, in the form of just spirit, soul, source, energy, love, presence, compassion, oneness, without necessarily having a house of worship you go to or a set of prayers you say. And that's fine. But you definitely need something beyond a materialistic viewpoint. Because see, if you're not spiritual, the only option is materialist. Either the world is matter or the world is spirit. Right? It's like, I think it was Einstein who said, there's only two ways to look at the world. Either nothing is a miracle or everything is a miracle. So either we're looking at the world as just matter, just physical form. Okay, get as much of it as you can. Make a bunch of money, build a big house, have a bunch of cars. Make this material thing look as good as it can. Okay. But I think what you'll find is it's not a very deep or fulfilling or meaningful way to live. And it certainly doesn't allow you access to those spaces that are pervaded by spirit. Spaces of love, spaces of connection, spaces of truth, spaces of depth. And so when we look at the world as spirit, it's not that we deny form, but we recognize that the form is the temporary part and the spirit is the permanent part. The form is what's always changing, the spirit is that which isn't. And so we commit to a spiritual path as a commitment to a path to truth, to knowing who we are. So, yeah, it's a beautiful, beautiful path to walk. And again, there's no right way or wrong way. It's not that to be spiritual you have to, have a checklist of did this, did that. It really just means a commitment to see the world, to see yourself as spirit. So there isn't anywhere you end and the rest of the world begins. You are not just your body. Others are not just their body. There is an energy through which we are connected to each other, to this continuation of ourself, even though our body keeps changing, to the trees, to the mountains, to the earth. That connection is what we call spirit. So Tatyana, I would say, give it a try, if you haven't yet. Find something that works for you. And then you tell me. Give it a few months. See if your life feels richer, deeper, more meaningful. See whether you're more able to connect to peace, to love, to understanding. You don't have to take my word for it. Try it yourself. You don't have anything to lose. You can always go back to a materialistic viewpoint. But But I think what you'll find is what so many have found, is that it brings something truly, truly invaluable to life. There's a reason that the poetry, the music, the literature, the artwork that touches us so deeply is always made by people who were spiritual. And again, they may not have been necessarily part of some specific religion or religious per se. But inevitably, whenever you learn more about them, you discover some spiritual experience, some spiritual quest, some spiritual dimension that they were creating from, that took the form of the poem or the song or the artwork. Because it opens up all of the channels of creativity in our life for whatever we create. Other questions? Any questions that anyone here might have? Yes. He's just bringing you a mic. Yeah, it's on.
I would like to ask you how to develop equanimity towards all people, because sometimes it's easy to be kind, polite, and grateful to people that we know, and very, very difficult to someone that we are not connected at all. So,
yeah.
Yes, this is my question. Thank you.
Beautiful. So how to develop that ability to have equanimity, but even beyond that, kindness to those we don't know. So there's two ways. One begins in the self, and the other begins in them. So first, let's look at it from the self. We can only give that which we have. Okay? The example that I always give about this is the air conditioner can only give you cold air. That's all it's got. You stand in front of it in July, it feels great. You think, thank you, air conditioner. You stand in front of it in January, you get pneumonia. But it's not the air conditioner's fault. All it's got is cold air, that's all it can give you. Even if it wanted to give you hot air, it couldn't, because it doesn't have that in it. In the same way, we are able to bring to the world only that which we have. And that which we are. If I am metaphorically the air conditioner, I'm going to give cool air, whoever you may be. If I become kindness, if I become someone who inside of me experiences love, experiences joy, experiences peace, I'm going to share that with everyone. I can't help it. I can't not share it because it is who I am. When we're only kind to those we know and love, then it's not so much because that's who we are, it's just more that that's a kind of strategic way that we live to take care of those we care about. What you want to do is move beyond that to actually becoming love in such a way that whether it's a stranger, whether it's a dog, whoever it may be, whatever it may be, that comes into your energetic field, whether you speak to them or don't speak to them, they feel that energy of love, because that's who you are, it's what you're exuding, it's what you're emanating. So one way is you work on yourself so that you just become love. And then it flows out of you. In your words, in your actions, in the looks in your eye, in your very energetic vibrational field. The other way is by focusing on them. And if you look at so many of the different spiritual traditions of the world, religious traditions of the world, they focus on this teaching of oneness. I was speaking about it today in the Arati, about how within the Hindu tradition, in the Vedic tradition, we were taught over and over again in so many different ways that we are one. We're one with all because we are one with God. We are inseparable. There is nothing but God. But that's not only a Hindu teaching. I was recently sharing about this somewhere, that I was raised in a Jewish family in Los Angeles. I now have spent the last 27 years in a Hindu environment in India. So I don't have a lot of experience with the Christian tradition. But one aspect of it I had always loved, but it had also always intrigued me, is that the line in which Jesus Christ says, love thy neighbor as thyself. Love thy neighbor as thyself. And since over the last few decades, I've had this great blessing of being able to be in the presence of so many different religious leaders of so many different religions. Whether it United Nations programs or Parliament of Religions programs or whatever it may be. And I've taken the opportunity to ask different religious leaders from the Christian tradition, did Jesus ever give, when he said that, love thy neighbor, did he ever clarify what he meant by neighbor? Next door neighbor, on your block neighbor? "50-meter radius neighbor, half a kilometer radius neighbor." Like, was there ever any specificity given there? And everyone I've asked said no. No radius given. No description given like that. Which leads me to believe that there is no radius meant to be given. And yet, most of us don't even know the name of our neighbors. I mean, most people maybe can name the person who lives next door and across the street. But if you take a poll of most people and you say, can you even name everyone on your block, let alone your whole area? I have yet to meet anyone who could name everyone on their block, unless there's someone who's only got, 2 people on their block. So if we can't even name them, how can we love them? And how can we even love them as much as we love ourselves? I mean, that much? How to love them when we don't even know them? There's only one answer. Love God and realize that they are all one with God. Realize that they are yourself. Because you are one with the divine. They are one with the divine. Therefore, if you love the divine, you're going to love everyone. Next door neighbors and people thousands of miles away. Right? That neighborhood keeps expanding. And so that other way to do this, to develop that kindness, is, can you see the divine? Whatever that means to you. Can you see the divine in everyone? Can you see yourself in everyone? And if you start working with it like that, then the kindness also automatically flows. as you look at them, see the divine. I'll share with you a personal practice I have. In Hindu temples, we have a lot of different deities, a lot of different physical manifestations of the divine. And so whether it's Krishna, whether it's Ram, whether it's Lord Shiva, whether it's Ganeshji, whether it's Hanumanji, whether it's Ma Durga, Ma Lakshmi, I mean, so many different deities we have in the temples. And you go to a lot of temples and you'll see the deities are portrayed in different ways by different sculptors, different artists, different parts of India, different sampradayas, traditions. And a personal practice is, as I move through the world, I try to see people as though they were deities in a temple. That like they're just a different deity in the temple. A deity I have yet to see. A manifestation of, a representation of the divine by an artist I had yet to see. But if you can do something like that, again, by whatever way works for you with your connection spiritually to the divine, can you see all of the beings as pervaded by, infused with that same divine spirit? Then it becomes much easier to be kind and to see them with love. And you'll find that it deepens your own experience of the moment very deeply. Not only is it nicer for them, but it actually makes every minute of your life an opportunity for spiritual practice, an opportunity to be in the presence of the divine. Yeah. Other questions? Yes.
माताजी प्रणाम। मेरा प्रश्न ये है कि गृहस्थ जीवन में रहते हुए हम लोग किस तरह से आध्यात्म को प्राप्त कर सकते हैं, क्योंकि घर उतार चढ़ाव जिंदगी के जो बिल्कुल
मैं समझ गई
और बचपन से थोड़ा सा मुझे ये चीज़ था ना, ये चीज़ थोड़ा अंदर से थी, तो मतलब अब
Yeah, I understand. कोई बात नहीं, बिल्कुल मैं समझ गई।
मैं बोल नहीं पाऊँ।
It's okay. So she's asked, living the householder life, how do we live it spiritually? She said, since childhood I've wondered this. How do we live that life in the house but spiritually? Well, first of all, I think it's really interesting and very telling and important that if you look at all of the scriptures, the stories, the epics that we're given, almost all of them are actually stories of households. The vast, overwhelming majority of stories we have, whether it's God come on earth, whether it's the story of Bhagavan Krishna, the story of Bhagavan Ram, or the story of the sages and the rishis, they're almost all, not always, but almost all, householders. And I think that that's there for a very important reason, to show us you don't have to be a renunciant. You don't have to leave the home in order to have a deep, deep spiritual practice. Even when God comes on earth in form, God lives in a household. Right? And an extended household. Not even just, small family, big families, extended families, all of the drama. So we're given that to show us that our spiritual practice and spiritual path, in most cases, is meant to happen inside the household. A few of us are meant to be renunciants, whether monastics or not, but are meant to not live a householder life. But the vast majority of people do live it. But we're shown again through the scriptures, through the epics, through the Puranas, through these stories, how to do it. How to do it, how not to do it, because we get stories of both. And the key really is to make that home your temple. As long as you feel like my spiritual path is separate from my householder life, you're going to be miserable. As long as in your mind, yehi meri adhyatmata, or yehi mere grest, Tofird, you will be very upset because you will always feel like there's not enough time for the spirituality. The gresti will start to feel like a burden. It'll start to feel like it's taking you away from your spiritual path. But if you can bring your spiritual path into the household, then it all becomes spiritual. And it doesn't mean that you don't have your set time for your prayers, for your meditation, for your puja. You should have it. Subhe, Sham, definitely have it. Alag se beta. Have it. But don't think in your mind that that's your only spiritual time. See how everything can become spiritual. We think of chores as very unspiritual. Oh my God, I've got to do the shopping and the cooking and the cleaning and the laundry. Just channel Shabri. You've got to sweep the house? No problem. Channel Shabri. Rather than sweeping like, oh my God, I can't believe I've got to do the sweeping. I wish I could be meditating. Just sweep like Shabri swept. Knowing that God is coming, God is coming. I'm sweeping the floor, I'm sweeping the road because who knows which way he's going to come from. That joy. She's sweeping, you're sweeping. Same thing. But she's in ecstasy and you're in misery. What's the difference? For us, it's a burden. For her, it's ecstatic devotion. Because whatever she's doing for God. So if you can do it like that, whatever you're doing, do it like puja. Cleaning the mandir makes us feel very happy. Cleaning the house, not so much. Serving food to the divine in the mandir feels like puja. Feeding the family feels like work. But if instead you can make all of the household things your puja, feel like that house is your mandir, then it all becomes your spiritual practice. It's the only way. Yes.
Hi, good evening. So my question is, how do you differentiate between living for your parents and their wishes and their dreams and living for yourself and your hopes and dreams?
Wonderful. Living for your parents and their hopes and dreams, or living for yourself. So, we all have a duty, a dharma, to our parents. They gave us birth. They gave us life. And there's responsibilities that are wrapped up in that. To care for them, to love them. And that manifests in each of our lives in very different ways. What we don't have is a duty to live our lives the way they want us to. And there's a very big difference there. We have a duty to care for them, to love them, to do what we can to keep them happy and comfortable and all of those things, as they did for us when we were young and growing up. But part of that package deal is not live your life to fulfill your parents' agenda. Live your life because this is what they envisioned you should do. Now, in many cases, not all, but in many cases, our parents are very wise. They understand the world, they understand us, and they have very valid advice or suggestions for us. In many cases, it's beneficial to listen to that and to take that, especially when we're young. Especially if we've lost our way. But there's a beautiful poem that I love by Khalil Gibran called On Children. It's a poem written to parents, but it's called On Children. And in the poem, he's speaking to parents about not stifling their children, not holding their children back. And he says in it, life moves only forward. And that you cannot aim to make them like you. He says, strive to be like them, but not to make them like you. Because things move forward, not backward. And I don't mean that in a derogatory sense. I'm not saying they are backward. But to do what our parents did, who did what our grandparents did, is moving backwards. Or at the very best, it's stagnating. Life moves forward. You have a dharma and a duty to yourself to live by your dharma, to embody that, to, like some commercial that I can't remember which one it is, that says, be all that you can be, right? I mean, that's what we're here for. To embody the fullness of ourself. And in many cases, that's not going to align with what our parents had as an agenda. And that's okay. Love them, respect them, care for them. But nowhere is it written, thou shalt spend your entire life living according to how your parents want you to. Thou shalt forsake your hopes, your dreams, your intuition, your dharma, because they have another agenda. Live your truth. Because true love, as most parents have for their children, is very strong. And when they actually see you living your truth and the joy that comes from that, even if it's not the agenda that they originally had, they'll become happy. I mean, my parents, this was not what my parents had envisioned. Promise. Wasn't even close. It was about as 180-degree opposite as you could get. And in the beginning, they rebelled. My mom did, especially. Vehemently. But slowly, 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 because they really love me, they were able to see how real and right and true it is. And not only did they tolerate it or accept it, but they actually came to really love it. So the truth is very powerful. Just live it with faith. Yeah, last question. We'll take yours.
आपको मेरा कोटि कोटि प्रणाम। आपने स्टार्टिंग में बोला जीसस क्राइस्ट जी को कोट किया, लव दाई नेबर्स, देन यू सेड कि वी शुड we don't even know the name of our neighbors and whatever.
Yeah.
So I have a doubt that way we are expanding ourselves outwardly. And what little bit spirituality I have gained, little bit only, that says what I have assumed is it's an inward journey. You have to become like a tortoise. So my question is where to draw the line between sansara and sannyas?
Beautiful. So, do we focus on loving others? That external energy? The sansara, the world, the external world? Or do we focus on inward? Yes and yes. They're not separate. Meaning, when I say love thy neighbor as thyself, when we speak about that, when gurus and leaders and prophets and from all of the different traditions, mystics have told us in different words, different ways, love all. Love all. They don't mean spend all day, every day, knocking on the doors of all of your neighbors to tell them that you love them. They don't mean spend all day, every day, buying Hallmark cards and slipping them under your neighbor's doors. What it means is generate within you a feeling of love that is so expansive, so unbounded, that it includes all. That's what it means. And you can only do that by going in. I can't actually love my neighbors by focusing on my neighbors. Because chances are, the more I get to know them, yeah, I might like them, but inevitably then I'm going to discover that they do something I don't like so much. You know, they barbecue or they do something that I think, oh God, that's not something I agree with, or who knows, whatever it may be. But if I focus my attention outward, I'm actually going to discover hurdles to that ability to just love fully those I don't even know. Then it becomes, oh, well, I love, the guy down the street a little bit more than I love my next door one, and this one I love more than that one because she's nicer and he's this and she's doing that and he's doing this. Then they become stories, dramas, separate individuals, cataloged in my brain, separation. That's not what we mean. The journey to love all is an inner journey. It's a journey to realize that the very nature of who I am is love. And therefore, I love all. And sure, it may manifest every once in a while in knocking on their doors and bringing them something just to bring smiles to their faces. Not because of who they are as individuals who I've cataloged, but just because they exist as embodiments of the divine, the same reason that we feed ducks sitting in a park. Same reason that we're taught before we eat to take out a little bit of our food, right, and we offer it. Why do we offer food before we eat it? Well, traditionally we offer it to the animals. Yes, to God, but we also to animals, a few grains of rice, a little bit of water. There are core teachings about feeding others, feeding animals before you eat, to remind us. It's not that I spend all day long going up and down the street feeding every caterpillar, but I exude it. I remember being on a stage many years ago with His Holiness the Dalai Lama. It was 2010 in the Kumbh Mela, and we were launching our Encyclopedia of Hinduism, and I was sitting just behind him. He and Pujya Swamiji were sitting next to each other, and I was sitting behind him, and it was this huge huge stage in Haridwar in the Kumbh Mela must have been. And I noticed His Holiness kept bending over. Now, he's now late 80s. This was 13 years ago. So, I mean, he was already in his mid-70s, so he wasn't a very young man. He was bending over, kept bending over, and I couldn't see what he was doing, but he kept bending over. And later, I found out that what he was doing was he kept bending over to pick up little caterpillars that were on the ground, and he would hand them to his security, because of course the Dalai Lama, and he's got all his security standing right in front of the stage, and he would pick one up and just hand it to his security guard standing at the front of the stage. Now, it wasn't that he got off the stage and he went up and down the streets of Haridwar picking up every caterpillar, but the ones that happened to enter into his life, the ones who the divine sent to him, those, he's going to do whatever he can. Take care of them. God forbid someone should step on the caterpillar. So we take care of all of those beings, not just our human neighbors, animals, plants, nature, because of that love that flows from our hearts. And it is an internal teaching. You know, you said sansara or sannyas, meaning the world or renunciation. Well, it's interesting, when we take vows of sannyas, one of the vows is a renunciation of family. But it doesn't mean that we become disconnected from the world. The way it was explained to me by Pujya Swamiji so beautifully was, it's not that you suddenly stop caring about the ones to whom you happen to be related. It's just that you suddenly start caring equally about all of the ones to whom you may not be related. That suddenly there's no distinction between who's my family and who's not. And that this idea of renunciation of family is a bit of a misnomer, because it's not that I'm actually pushing away a family so much as I am expanding and embracing my idea of family to include all. So we step away from the exclusivity, the drama, the attachment, but we expand into the embrace of the greater family. So it's the same. I can only love all when I've done my sadhana, and I become an embodiment of, a manifester of, a creator of, a transmitter of love. I'll end with my favorite moments. A beautiful devotee from London was here, and she has 2 sons, and at the time her sons were quite young, and she spent about a week here. And the day before they were leaving, they were sitting with Pujya Swamiji, and he asked her sons, who were maybe 8 or 9 at the time, "How did you like it here?" These are 2 young boys brought up in London. And he said, "How did you like it here? What did you feel? What do you think?" And one of them said, "I feel like someone has reached into my heart and turned the switch from off to on." A kid, a 9-year-old kid, 8-year-old kid. A week here, that was it. That's the experience. That's the experience. Nobody said to him, figure out how to love everybody. But he's going back with a switch in his heart that's on. Which means now as he moves through his world, he's going to share love. I mean, he never was the type who would have become the, schoolyard bully anyway. But now you know he won't be. Now you know he's going to be the kid who's going to be sharing and helping. And that's what it is. So it's the sadhana to turn that switch from off to on. And then we love all. Beautiful. Have a beautiful, beautiful rest of your evening, everyone. I unfortunately have to leave tomorrow to go to, unfortunately because I'm leaving here for a few days, but I'm going off to the Maldives to present at a beautiful summit on wellness and wellness connected to the soul. So it's a summit called Soul on total wellness with presenters from around the world in a variety of different areas. So unfortunately, I will be out from tomorrow for a week. I'll be back here on October 5th, which I think is just a week from tomorrow, is it not? Right? Today's what day of the week? I'm sorry? Today's Wednesday, okay. And October 5th is also Thursday, right? Somebody check, somebody. I think it is. Yeah, it is, right? Okay. So we're out for a week. Thursday to Thursday, there's no satsang. So 28th through 5th, there's no satsang. I will see you all again a week from tomorrow on Thursday the 5th. Hopefully you will all still be able to be here in Rishikesh, for those of you who won't be. If you have questions we didn't have a chance to get to, feel free to get them to our Seva team. We will take them in upcoming satsangs, and as you may have noticed, the cameras that are here, we do live stream this every night online. So wherever you are, you can join in and stay connected, and we'll take your questions. But if you're still going to be here, first of all, it means you're very lucky. And second of all, I look really forward to seeing you all again next week. Have a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful week.